if you've got any desire to create a business,
Yeah.
I think the first thing you've got to, in your head, you've got to know that it's all right for you.
Yeah.
You've got to give yourself permission to go and do it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other things I'd say to people is you've got to be shameless
Yeah.
in doing it. You've got to be prepared to fall down,
Yeah.
fail, get
Yeah.
back up,
Yeah.
and not worry about what other people
Yeah.
think.
Hello everybody. Thank you for joining me again. It's Stephen Englander, as always, in Between the Spreadsheets. Now today I've got an interesting gentleman with me, and his name's Neil Ball, and I met Neil a little while ago while he invited me onto his podcast as a guest. I think he's always regretted that, but he brought me on. I think that the podcast is called The Entrepreneur's Way, and Neil interviews people of interest, business people from all over the country, especially in America. So as a form of revenge, I've brought Neil on to today's podcast, and here we go. Hello, Neil. How are you?
Hello, Stephen. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
Oh,
and
welcome.
I'm not sure about this revenge. Where are you going with that?
Well, I'm just going to see what we can get out of you. So you what I found particularly interesting about you, Neil, is that you were in quite a successful business and sort of playing with the big boys as well. Mm-hmm. And you sold up, and then came back into it, and then came out of it
quite
again.
a sell-up, but yeah.
Okay, well, you can tell me about that. And then you started this podcast. So tell all those people out there that are listening to this and they're desperate for someone to come along and tell them that they're not alone, and you know, businesses don't always go well, and you've got to keep going. So tell me about that.
I think probably as a backdrop to that, I'll talk about how I got to that point.
Okay,
because
yeah.
I think that
Makes more
that's
sense,
important.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
a very quick overview of how I got there. I started the business from absolute zero.
Right.
I was literally working in a nightclub, earning about £3.20 an hour back in the 80s.
Twice what I pay my staff.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I was thinking about applying for a job.
Yeah. Come along.
And
Have to start from the bottom though.
And I was struggling to get out of that industry because I don't know why. Maybe I didn't put much effort into it.
What was the industry? What were you in?
Nightclub. I was a barman.
Sorry.
I was working
Right,
on
I
the
thought you
bar.
meant your business. Yeah.
And I tried various different things, creating different businesses, and found out how to fail multiple times, but just somehow kept going.
I'm good at that.
And I always remember when I was a kid, I used to love playing with buying hi-fi and stuff, and I used to recycle my hi-fi before recycling was the thing. So because I used to get cash for it, so
Right.
I'd have it for a while, and then I'd sell it in the local newspaper and get someone to come along and buy it from me, and then I'd take that money and put it into something else. So I'd always remember the demand for that kind of stuff, and I was always interested in it, and I started buying. I started off with a pallet of mail order return products, which I bought from this place in North Wales, which I could tell you a whole story about. But
Was that a company called Gem?
It was.
I remember them. I don't.
Really?
You used to a lot of catalogue surplus as well.
That's
didn't
right,
you?
yeah.
I remember.
Well,
that,
I went there with someone I was working with in a nightclub at the time in his Larder Reaver.
Right.
You remember those?
Oh, it's embarrassing.
Oh, we were travelling in style. And we went there to buy a pallet of these goods, and it was on a Sunday.
Yeah.
They were actually open on a Sunday, and it was towards the end of the day, and we bought all this stuff, and they wheeled it outside, and we sat there with a pallet full of stuff and looking at his car and going, it's not going to fit.
Won't fit. On.
So we ended up putting half of it in the car, and the person I was with drove all the way back to Bolton to drop it off, then came back for me to collect the other part of it. So I was stood outside after they'd shut in the middle of a car park with a pallet full of goods, which we ended up bringing back. But that was just the beginning of it, and then I started buying from other places. I started buying from a place, and I started getting more successful with it, and I got a different business partner and went down to...
One with a bigger car?
Oh, we progressed then. We started hiring. We hired a van. Didn't learn though, because then what I did was we went along with probably £2,000 or £3,000. I can't remember exactly how much it was. We went with, and we bought an absolute pile of mail order returns from people like Alba and Bush and all these catalogue, all just stuff that didn't work, or something wrong with it, or those bits missing from it. We spent everything we'd got, filled up the van and struggled to get everything in again. So we were literally, this time we didn't drive back, that was from Watford.
Yeah.
It was a company called Geneva Corporation that doesn't exist anymore. But and we ended up taking lots of the stuff out of the packaging, flat packing the boxes and stuffing it all in there, and we got it all in and drove it all back to Bolton. And we just kept doing that over and over, and slowly the business just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and we started from nothing.
I think that's how Tesco's used to do it, you know. When they first started, seriously, they used to do a lot of redundant stock and clearance and dinted tins, real pilot high, sell it cheap sort of operation.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
Just comparing you to Tesco.
Really, I was quite flattered by that. I wanted to just carry on with that, really. And we did that for a number of years, and I started buying catalogue, all sorts of B grade stock and stock that we could buy. And there's certain people that want to buy it's a bit like buying a car. You can go and buy a new one, or there's some people that realise that if you buy one that's a few months old, you'll save a pile of money, and it's the same thing pretty much. Well, with the return stuff or graded stock, some people would be more interested in buying that, and we slowly built it up. And I'd read, in my years of trying to find where I was up to, I'd read this book, The Lazy Man's Way to Riches by Joe Carbo. You heard of it?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. It was quite a good seller. I think it sold about 1 million copies back in the 80s or something. And that book had given me this idea of doing mail order.
I didn't read it because I couldn't be bothered opening it.
Oh, could you not?
No.
That's the important bit.
I didn't feel like getting out of bed.
But it gave me this idea of mail order, and I discovered Exchange and Mart, so I started advertising in there. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So I used to advertise in there, and I used to advertise in Loot locally here, and slowly it just built. And then I had a magazine contact me, asking me if I wanted to advertise in their magazine, and I discovered what it was like to go into specialist publications. Right. But I could never afford to advertise in it because it was always too expensive for the rate card. But I actually discovered eventually that the rate card is for people who are spending other people's money, employees of big companies.
You can negotiate.
And you can negotiate and get a lot of discounts off them. So I ended up doing that more and more, and just getting a specialist, people who really appreciated the product, who knew exactly what they wanted to buy, and we just built the business and grew it and grew it. And I think by about the early 2000s, we'd completely run out of space. We were doing about 15 million a year.
Wow.
And it was doing pretty well.
Where was the main store?
It was in Farnworth.
Oh, right. Okay. And what was it called?
The shop was called Sound and Vision.
That's where I got light and sound and that.
Yeah, you were
Sound
near.
and Vision. Yeah. So if anybody remembers this shop, do give us a wave.
Oh yeah, I've probably had quite a few customers who are maybe listening now. We dealt with a lot of people, and then so we got stuck for quite a period of time because we needed bigger premises, and it was we sort of struggled to find something that was fairly local to where we are, and eventually we got somewhere that was bigger. I think in 2002 we went on the internet,
right?
And wow, we went from doing £1 million a month on average to 3.
And this is by going on the internet.
1 month.
What's interesting here is I think it's a lot of people are scared to open bigger shops or bigger businesses in more regional areas. They think you've got to be in the city centre to get the footfall. Yeah. Because Farnworth, it's only a small place.
It is.
And it's more of a car park for Bolton, isn't it? It's not.
You probably
really,
wouldn't want to park a car there.
Yeah, but it's not a place you go shopping. But the fact that you built such a big business from there. But this is what I say to people all the time: you get your branding right, you get your product right. You don't need to spend massive amounts of money on footfall. And now that the internet's come along, especially you're one of the earlier people to really prove this point, is that you put your stock, you put your goods online, and you tripled the size of your business very, very quickly. Yeah. So that's good business advice for people to hear. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Karen.
It is. You bring up a very good point there, actually, because the thing about Farnworth was it was a low overhead location.
Yeah.
But it had great motorway links.
Right.
So you could come in from the north, from Preston down the M61. You could come from all of Manchester, from Leeds and Yorkshire and everything. Yeah. So people used to come in from far and wide to come to us because we had we back then were stocking all the biggest and the best of brands like Panasonic, Sony, Toshiba, and whereas you might go to Currys at the time and they might have one of the biggest TV. I mean, now it's different, but back then a 33-inch TV was seen as massive, in fact too big. A 37-inch TV was virtually unheard of. Right. But we had them all. Yeah. So for somebody who was mainly business owners, quite often they were our customers, they'd come to us because they wanted the advice, they wanted to compare the products and see what the best product was. They wanted to be able to take it away that day, and obviously the marketing we had was what got them into there. We were really good at that by using the magazines.
Also really good because you started off, it sounds a bit of a cliche, but it's not, by just buying some pallets at random from a job dealer, and you turn that into a very, very profitable business. But it's not just because you had discounted goods and you had things a little bit different. It's because you give that customer service. You would actually walk into your store and you would be able to advise people what they needed and direct them, against what they probably want and to something that they should.
No, we were really good at that. We were brilliant at it.
And this is something that I say because I don't know if you realise, but I'm not a big fan of these big supermarkets and big stores.
I didn't know that.
No,
but it's a good choice.
Yeah, I know, and it's a case of having. If you do have a small business, which most of my clients do, and most of the people watching this will, is remember you can compete because you know your stuff. You care about your customer. It's not just put a box on a shelf and think people will go and buy it. It's not just about selling on price. You will get a premium if you offer the service, and they will come in, which is proof with you because you're in Farnworth, which you were in Farnworth, which isn't a place that people rush to. You go into the city centre or you go to one of these big shopping centres, but you were pulling them in, and you had in an extremely competitive market a high turnover, and it was people coming in. It wasn't. It's not something that people have to buy. They were seeking you out, obviously, and it doesn't surprise me that the brand exploded when you went online because you were still fulfilling that service, and you probably created a brand as well. You probably created a great character for your business.
We did. We had a great reputation for what we were doing. We were specialists in the top end product. In fact, we couldn't, back then the average size of a TV was 21 inches. We could hardly sell a 21-inch TV. We were forced to take the product from some of these suppliers just because they gave you extra discounts if you took the whole range. So we'd put a 21-inch TV on the shelf, but it'd take us about 4 months to sell it. It was just ridiculous. Whereas we could sell their bigger TVs over and over and over again.
Knowing your market.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that was, I think a lot of people think, well, you can't compete with people like Currys or Comet as it was back then. And in fact, there was loads of electricity companies were selling TVs as well at the time. We could compete against all of them. In fact, we could undercut them easily. And back then, because we were small enough to be below the radar, and we never really got that notice. We were a bit of a niggle every so often for them, but that was it. And in fact, the other thing we were very fortunate because when we came into the industry, there'd been a change. There'd been an investigation into the whole of the consumer electronics industry.
Okay. In what way?
In price fixing.
Right, of course.
And controlling what price people sell the product for. And we literally came in just after that. We didn't realise it had happened. And we didn't know those rules.
But so we broke shenanigans with bigger firms anyway. So what rules did you break?
Well, we discounted the product.
And you weren't allowed to?
Well, but up to that point, they weren't allowed to. They weren't.
Like with books, remember that you couldn't discount books at one point.
Well, it wasn't that you weren't allowed to. It's just that if you did start discounting it, you might find that your supply would dry up a little bit.
So it's more market control. It's more the big boys all coming together to prevent.
Or it'd be very difficult to get an account. And actually, I found it very difficult in those early days to get accounts with quite a few of the suppliers because the rep would speak to you, but then they'd forget to call you back.
I get it.
Or they'd be too busy, and you had to be very, very persistent, or I had to be very persistent to get them to come in. But eventually, I mean, sometimes what I'd do is I'd buy, in fact, one of the other things I was doing at the time was it was cheaper to buy a lot of the products in Europe. So I used to import the product from Europe. And I could make a killing on the product then because sometimes it'd be £500–600 cheaper in Europe than it was in the UK, or in Europe, they'd sell it without a TV stand. And some people didn't want the TV stand, so we'd buy the European version without the TV stand and save quite a lot of money because it could do that.
So I've heard all this said before. In fact, a friend of mine, he deals in all sorts of things, but he had a similar problem with white goods, you know, things like fridges and stuff. And
I think some of their brands are the same.
Yeah, but what he's done? Do you remember Pye? P-Y-E.
Yeah.
It went bankrupt 30 years ago. They bought the brand out of, just brought the brand back with the logo Pye, and now he's got his own brand and sticks it on this stuff, and it means he doesn't have to go through these people that control the market, because it still goes on. It shouldn't, but it does. So it's interesting.
Yeah, we used to do that, and in fact, the other thing we used to do was we used to, in the early days of DVD, there wasn't many UK DVDs available. They tend to be slow to come to the UK. The film companies used to, or the movie, people Hollywood used to launch in the US,
right?
And then it'd come over here in the cinema US, cinema here,
right?
DVD US, DVD here.
Yeah.
So people used to import the DVDs from the US.
And they didn't work.
So you could get them quicker, but they wouldn't work on the UK machine. So we used to convert the machines.
Oh, right. No, I'm laughing because before you came to the studio, there's behind you. There's a pack of jazz CDs.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got a CD player here, which you were admiring before.
I was, yeah.
Those one. And I put one in, but it won't work because that's an American one.
It should work.
It's not. Look at it after the show. But and it doesn't work in my car either. So.
Well, the CDs should work from anywhere. DVDs, they created regions of the movie of the DVDs at different points at different times.
Maybe it's just a crap CD. But no. So you built that business up.
Yeah.
And then you sold. Did you sell out? No. Sorry. What happened?
It grew to about. I think at that peak we were doing about 60 or 70 million a year.
That's amazing.
So it was pretty big.
Yeah.
And I think we'd in certain ways we'd grown to our level of incompetence.
Yeah. Oh, I did that ages ago.
An element of that.
Yeah.
I try to avoid that now.
Yeah.
And it was 2008. And all of a sudden I discovered that the whole of the industry was insured by 4 companies, and one of them only insured one of our suppliers.
Right.
So all of our suppliers, they insure the credit.
Right.
So these credit insurers were looking at the industry. It was 2008, which was the banking crisis, or the Great Recession, as the Americans call it. And these employees who were working in these companies are thinking, well, if I mess this up, I'll lose my job.
Yeah.
So they started looking where the risk is, and where was the risk? It was with the bigger players.
Yeah.
So we were one of the bigger independents. Yeah. I mean, I think you might remember Empire Direct as one of the other ones.
Don't.
No, well, they were bigger than us, but they operated.
I'd heard of your operation.
Had you really?
Yeah, I had.
Was that for good reasons?
I just associated it with the industry that you were in. I didn't know where you were, and I should have come to buy stuff of you, but I didn't. But mainly because I was never allowed to buy anything. It was always my partner that bought everything.
Was it?
So as women do, I just don't buy anything. Yeah. So I didn't have that choice. Even that wasn't my choice. Even the Bose player there wasn't my choice.
Quite expensive, those, I think. Like
I
£400.
wouldn't have paid that for one.
No.
But my ex-wife decided, why not? No. But what's interesting here is that what I can take away from this. I often speak to people that feel failures because all of a sudden there's always situations like with you where things happen, and they tend to happen all at once. Lots of things happen that you can't control.
Yep.
But a lot of people, they feel that they've built a business up to a certain degree, and then all of a sudden it crashes and they can't run it anymore. And the takeaway here is you're not a failure. You've not done anything wrong. The credit is growing the business to where you are. And what often happens is that as a business grows, it changes. Yeah. And it stops being that you're the trader, you're the wheeler dealer, you've got the great image, you look after customers. Yeah. And all of a sudden, your role changes. Yeah. And you've got to be the manager. You've got to micromanage staff, because staff are a nightmare, especially in retail, because you really can't control results, you've got advisors at the back of your head, and all of a sudden you go from doing what built the business into a completely different skill set in managing the business. And some of us are lucky enough that we've managed to find the appropriate management team, and it means you can still grow and you can still carry on being the entrepreneur that you are. But quite often we can't find the right staff, and we don't realise that suddenly we're near it. It just sort of catches up to us, and or it just hits us in the face, and the next thing you know is everything, you get a crisis and everything comes tumbling down. But the great thing about growing a business is I would always say, plan a growth. Don't just go with the flow because you're turning over 70, 80 million. But once you do start getting to that stage, because it can become a bit of, most business people have a severe lack of serotonin in the brains, and we need to do those deals. We need them coming in to keep us high. And sometimes you've got to stop that pace and become the guy at the desk. This is why accountants went out, because you walk into my place and honestly you come to the studio a bit, it's exciting, it's fun. You go upstairs and it's like very serious, and everyone's typing away, and well, where's that invoice? Where's that receipt? And that you need a good team. So if you are going to expand the business and you've got plans, or you're already in the middle, it's starting to get a bit out of control, then I'm here to talk to. I know all this not just because I've been an accountant for the last 30 years, but because I come from that background. My father used to have factories and manufacturing, and he every 10 years or so, same thing. It grew because he was a natural entrepreneur. The business was good, but then he couldn't manage everything. And I did it. I did it years ago. I had 7 shops. I had a cash and carry. I was importing, exporting. But I was doing everything, and just one day it all crashed. And I was so glad it crashed, because I was having a nervous breakdown. You couldn't keep it up. So sorry, I'm taking your limelight, aren't I?
No. It's very interesting to hear what you're saying. Actually, as you're saying it, I'm sort of. I've had a lot of time since then to sort of think back on it and think about how I could have maybe been different and actually done it differently. And I think some things come out of it that are quite interesting. I mean, the point you've made about it, the person that creates the business isn't always the person that ends up taking the business all the way to success.
Skills.
I mean, you hear about these people like Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey and different people who are from Silicon Valley, and they have managed to do that. But it's quite normal. It's quite normal where a founder will start a business, they'll get external funding, and at some point they'll end up being replaced in the business, or they'll be given a role that they might not be happy with because the shareholders have decided that they need somebody else to be able to take it to another level. Or sometimes people do it voluntarily. They'll just set aside, stand aside and say, I've done what I want to do here, I now need somebody to take it beyond. And that is really where your own development as a person has to come in, because you have to be able to see that what got you started, that sort of scrappiness, that ability to buy a pile of junk and somehow turn it into something that people wanted and create a business out of it is not the same as what you end up doing when you're doing 2, 3, 4, 5 million a month.
And I've seen so many people, and again I feel it because I've been there, where they put so much energy and work and commitment into something and build it, sometimes to a great degree, where it suddenly feels like it's failed. So they feel like failures as people, but it's not. It's not even a misjudgment. It's just that the time comes when you need a team, and sometimes the team you've got are actually pushing you in the wrong direction because they're the same as you. That, they want to do what you do, but they don't do it as well. But instead of doing what they do, like record that, phone up that supplier, chase up that delivery. Why is that lady on the shop floor complaining? There's loads of things, but there's not very many people on the planet that can say they built a business up to even £1 million, let alone 70 million. So
it's crazy. I'm very proud of it. I mean, I am. I'm incredibly proud of it, and I don't feel like a failure.
No,
I know that what I did was amazing. I had a business partner as well. The two of us did it, but what we created was absolutely incredible, really.
But there's a lot of people out there that feel bad.
And I think there's a lot of stigma around people who've, in this country, I think failing in business, having a failure of a business is something that's quite a bit of stigma to. But actually, It's the wrong attitude. It's actually a strength. Because if you've not failed, you've never pushed to the edge. You've not learned. And when I think back about it, I mean, as I was saying, these credit insurers, for example, 3 credit insurers for the whole of the industry, and they kept it all secret until that point, and they decided they had too much exposure, so they reduced our credit limit. Then what happened was the bank looked at their position and said, well, all these credit insurers, all these companies want their money back, we want our money back.
Be careful,
So they started squeezing it as well. And then on top of that, the suppliers were all hurting. So they started looking at the way they were selling the products. And whereas when we were doing £1 million a month, we weren't really being noticed that much. We were starting to get noticed by people like Youre, who were using us as an example and going to a supplier and saying, we'd like to buy the product off you, but we want to be able to compete with this price that these guys in Bolton are competing at. So, and we want to be able to make this margin. So either sort their price out or give us a better deal, or we're not going to buy.
It's all old boys network, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm against. I don't believe smaller companies and individuals running their own business can possibly do worse in their supply and their customer service and so on. I mean, I won't go into Currys, you know. No, I really won't. I can't stand the service.
No.
I go in and it's like one guy, last time I went, I was looking for a computer, and he's talking such drivel. I wouldn't
buy a computer from them.
But I needed one, and he talks such drivel, honestly. And even then, when I finally had to buy it, it was just a laptop, which turned out to be crap anyway. And I had to buy it because my daughter was doing my head in to get one. And even then, he starts going on about the insurance, and I just said, I don't want it. And I actually got to the point where I said, if you ask me again, I'm going to walk out. And he did. And my daughter looked at me, right, okay. And I just, you know, I didn't walk out, but anyway. But anyway, so that business, you left that business.
Well, there was one other thing that was interesting in that time. So it was like a perfect storm of all these things. And one other thing that happened was all the suppliers started listening to their biggest customer.
Of course.
And they started thinking, how can we fix this internet problem? Because we were discounting the product, like a lot of other people were. And what they did was they created a set of terms where if you went into a store and had a demonstration of something, the retailer could claim money to be able to give you a better deal than if you bought it online. And if you bought it in the store, we might give you a free Blu-ray player as well, and some free Blu-ray discs. But if you buy it online, we won't. And then what we ended up, we became big administrators for the suppliers, really, because every month we'd have to put these claims in for all the money that we were doing. And it's a really cash-intense business, because you had all these, you'd buy a product for £1,000, you might sell it for 800. You had to claim back 300 when you sold it or something. Then you had all these retrospective discounts that were paid
it's like the
quarterly, 6 monthly, annually, and it was so cash-intensive. And I think that combination of the credit insurers, the banks, the change in the terms, making it very difficult for us. And in fact, it's so much so now that if you go and look for a top-of-the-range TV from one of the main manufacturers, and I'm not going to name any, but I dealt with all of them, so you can work that out, you cannot buy those products at the kind of price you would expect to be able to buy them online, because a lot of the suppliers are not allowed to sell them online. And therefore, what you're left with is companies that have got national distribution who are able to dominate on Google, squeezing out all the other guys. So it just completely changed.
So what's the remedy? How do you get around that?
If
you were setting up now, doing that, what would be the remedy of preventing this for you? How would you get back to it?
I wouldn't go back into that business.
So just that's an industry that's now being killed.
I wouldn't go into that industry. I think it's too. They found a way of protecting. Using European law, actually, they found a way of protecting the distribution with restrictive distribution agreements, which makes it very, very difficult to do what we did. I don't think you could do what we did now.
No.
There might be another part.
But there's no real reason for it. It's just that the industry it's a very protected industry, and it's naughty.
Well, Youre, if you look at it now, Youre, for example, back then they had Comet as a brand. Well, Comet went bust. Youre bought the Comet brand to make sure it never came back.
I never saw the difference between the two companies anyway.
And now they've got domination in terms of they are the number one and they've got no competition in terms of anyone
I
else.
buy anything I need. Like we go through computers here all the time, and there's a couple of people I know that make their own computers, put them all together, and they just build whatever I ask them to. And it's cheaper than Curry's. So
we were always cheaper than Curry's.
Yeah,
people were surprised. It's like, how can you be cheaper than Curry's? And it's like, well, it's not difficult.
No, because people don't realize. I know when I used to go to China a lot, and I used to sell not big star stuff, but I used to sell electronic stuff, and I used to think, that's like £10 in
is that time up?
It's like £10 in the cash and carries, but it's like £1 in China to buy it.
Yeah.
And I remember when I saw when the iPads first started coming out, the tablets, and they're like £300-400, and then I would. When I was in China once, I saw a tablet being made, and they were like £3-4. So people don't realise that the price difference between what it really costs to make and what it's been sold at. But that's business. You get what you can. You get as much as you can for as long as you can. It's price protectionism. It's every dirty trick under the sun, which is what you expect. But you were very brave. You did okay. So. Should we switch on to your new endeavour, the entrepreneur's way?
We can do, yeah.
Yeah, that's more fun, isn't it?
Oh, much more fun. That was too serious. The other stuff.
It was. Yeah. So you've got this great podcast, and why do you do it? Why do you want this stress in your life?
I think I like it.
Why would anyone want to like being a broadcaster?
I don't know. I don't know why anybody would even bother. I mean, you can imagine doing it with a video as well.
Oh, yeah, I know. People can see you then. They can see
exactly. I mean, it's like I've revealed myself to the world today. Before I was just this voice behind my microphone. But know what you've done. You've exposed me.
Yeah. No, I'm saying I did that once and I got into a lot of trouble. In fact, I did a little bit of stand-up.
I don't think it wanted us to.
No, I did some stand-up comedy once as well, believe it or not.
Did you?
Yeah, but I had to stop because when I got on stage, everyone kept screaming at me to put my clothes back on. I never understood that. But so do you highlight? Do you target certain people? What's your favourite type of?
See, I'd like to be able to say that there's some methodology behind me targeting certain people and getting these people on my podcast, but generally no.
Right. You just
it's fairly organic. It just sort of happens. I mean, you came on my podcast. How did you end up on my show?
I think Ed, my PR guy.
Ed contacted me, didn't he? That was it. Yeah, because Ed knew I'd done it. Yeah.
Because you're a public speaker as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
So no, it's quite nice. I like the way you did it. I like the way you put it together. I still get your podcast. I still get your shows. I still get your newsletter.
Oh, God, you're the one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But so if anybody does want to be on Neil's show, it's quite interesting. You don't need to worry about it. It's not like me. He's not sarcastic. He's not horrible. He goes through. He tells you what he's going to ask you before the show, so you've got some practice.
It's too easy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is easy. But if you do want to come up, Neil's contact details are coming up, and just by all means contact him. If you want to know more about what Neil does, and you're too shy to contact Neil, then please feel free to contact me and I'll put you in touch. But I'm always on out there. You should have as much publicity about yourself as possible. Go on, talk about your journey, because we're being American now. Outreach to as many people as you can, and whether you're on my show or Neil's show, it's a great experience, and it opens up the world to you. So do contact us both. Any closing words, Neil?
Yeah, I think for anybody, if you've got any desire to create a business, I think the first thing you've got to in your head, you've got to know that it's all right for you. You've got to give yourself permission to go and do it. And I think one of the other things I'd say to people is you've got to be shameless in doing it. You've got to be prepared to fall down, fail, get back up, and not worry about what other people think. Put yourself out there on YouTube, put yourself out there on podcasts, even if you're bad at it, because you can never get good if you're not prepared to be bad at it first.
No. It seems obvious, doesn't it?
It does, but most people want to wait until they can do it perfectly, and they never put the effort in to do it. And I learned a long time ago that with my podcast, one of the things for me was that was a personal development thing for me. When I started out, I was not the greatest or most natural podcaster, but I just decided I was going to do it regardless. And I've had some feedback that sometimes wasn't always the best. It didn't always suit certain people, but I didn't care, because I enjoy doing it, and I know that other people enjoy it, and that's what you've got to realise is that there's a sector of people that will enjoy what you do or want what you do, whether it's selling a product or a service or you're broadcasting or whatever you're doing.
Don't listen.
Exactly. They can switch it off.
Yeah. 3 things in business that prevent people from getting anywhere, not in any particular order. One, people are apathetic and they procrastinate, any excuse not to do it. The second one is not great communication skills. And the third one is fear, whether it's fear of success or fear of failing. You've got to address each one of those things, and the people that do, zoom. And of course, there's people like me around, there's lots of people like me that can help and will help, and there's people like Neil that will give you that stepping stone, that chance to experience what these things feel like.
I've got one more thing for you.
Yeah, okay.
I think the other thing I talked about being shameless, and giving yourself permission to doing it and being all right for you. But I think the other thing is you've got to be somebody who's prepared to have adversity in your life. Yeah. Because really running a business is about dealing with problems all the time.
It is.
You never have a problem-free existence when you run a business. You're constantly dealing with problems. Some people are good at doing that. Some people don't like it.
Well, a sale, what is it? It's only a solution in a box.
Yeah. So that's the other thing.
Yeah. No, it's great. Great. So do be in touch. Thank you very much for joining us on today's podcast. I wish it could go on for longer, but nobody watches it past a certain amount. So I'll see you on the next podcast, and thank you again for joining us. And Neil, thank you again for sort of humbling yourself to be on this programme.
Stephen, you're very welcome. It's been great coming here and just reminiscing about those times in the past, so thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Okay, bye-bye.